Hi, my name's Sally Waterston. To be honest, I hate talking about myself. It's too boring. But I have to give you a tiny bit of background before I start for context. So, I went to university in the swinging 60s, an absolutely fantastic time to be at university. And I studied English and had a great time. But perhaps, and this may surprise you, I have spent most of my career working in information technology with computers. I've been a computer programmer, a systems analyst, a project manager, operations manager, running a massive mainframe server that had a whole room to itself, but had less power than your mobile phone. So I've done a lot of different things, all of which I've absolutely loved. Later on, I was lucky enough to work for myself and then to set up a computer consultancy and business consultancy with my husband and with a colleague. And we started in 1994, long before any of you, probably before your parents were born. We started round the kitchen table, the three of us, and now almost 27 years later, there are 230 people. There are offices in Sydney in Australia, in London, in Durham, and in Glasgow. So, okay, so far, so boring. I mean, lots of people have done things like that. So why have I been asked to do this little talk? Well, it's because of the way we set the business up, because of our values and our ethos, which are different from quite a lot of businesses. To begin with, we were told that it would never work. But I feel now that 27 years on, when we've grown, we make profits, our people are happy, they stay with us. I don't have to justify the way we did it. These are our principles. Please note I'm saying ours and not mine. They don't belong just to me, just to the directors or the founders of the business. They belong to everybody. Every one of those 230 people lives by these principles. Just today, I've seen a report by a third party, a company who actually talked to several of our customers and asked them to describe the business in 3 words. And they all used words like trustworthy, helpful, friends, reliable, all those sort of words that you'd want, honest, all the sort of words you'd want people to say about you and about your business. They were all, without exception, very complimentary about our people. This is not about me. I'm retired now. I'm just a non-exec. So this is not about me. This is about the people in our business and the way they operate. Really important, that. So the first thing that we decided in our business was this sort of little strap line that we have, which is people first. We have always believed that people are more important than computers, they're more important than technology, and they're more important than profit. They're more important than our business. We say to people when they join us, if your husband or your wife is ill, if it's your child's nativity play, if it's your grandmother's birthday, don't want to see you here. You should be there. Your family is more important than the business. The business will survive. Your family must come first. That has always been what we believed. We've never had fixed hours or fixed holidays for people. There are certain people within the business who have to work within certain hours for specific customers. But on the whole, we want people to be free to do the work when it suits them, where it suits them. They're measured on what they do, not on where they were when they did it or what time they did it. If they want to work all night or they want to work in Starbucks when you're allowed to work in Starbucks, then that's absolutely fine by us. We only measure them by what they do, not by when they do it. People thought that our staff would take advantage of us, but they don't. It's self-managing. It's wonderful. We believe that customers are very important. We've all had rubbish customer service at some time in our lives, haven't we? We don't want our customers ever to feel frustrated or unhappy because we haven't been. We always want our customers to feel we're on their side. That's the message that's coming over from this report I've got today, which is absolutely wonderful. We should always be on our customer's side. There shouldn't be a conflict between our responsibilities to the people in the business and our responsibilities to our customers. And I often say to people, I get asked about this quite often, what happens if you're working on a project, you've got a hot date or something, it's a Friday night, your customer rings with a problem, what should you do? Who takes priority? My response would always be, there are 230 people in this business. If you're the only person that can sort that customer's problem out, then we have failed. I would expect you to spend the time telling someone else what the problem is, and then that person will cover from you in exactly the same way as you will cover for them when it's their granny's birthday and something goes wrong. I think it makes absolute sense, and that has worked for 27 years. It's not a question of fairness or anything like that. It's a question of mutual collaboration and cooperation. And that's what people want to do. That's how people want to work if they're given half the chance. Now, I believe that everybody deserves to be treated with respect and honesty. And I know that some people don't deserve our trust and don't treat us with respect. And I will come to that later on, because I think that's an important thing to remember. We know that we can trust our people. We know we can. We interview them carefully, and we know the sort of people we're looking for. Some wise person once said, to be a good leader, you just need to be polite. I think that goes a long way. You should always be grateful to people who work for you. You should be grateful that they choose to work for you. You're not doing them a favour. They are doing you a favour by coming and working for you. Always say please and thank you, and always appreciate what they have done. That goes a very long way, I think. Be honest. People make mistakes. I've made so many mistakes in my life. If we fired people for making mistakes, I wouldn't work in the business. I'll tell you a secret at the moment. Only you know this. My laptop's sort of almost new, and the D key is stuck down with marmalade at the moment, which is a real problem for me. I haven't owned up yet to the people at work that I've done that. We all make mistakes, me more than most. Always tell the truth, because then you don't have to remember what you said. Just always tell the truth. So that's work. How does this apply outside work? For school, for your life outside school, with your mates? I think I can tell you a lot of things I've learned along the way. A lot of them by making mistakes and the things I've got wrong. So let's start off by talking about conflict. When we have people that we don't like, people who are difficult, how do we manage that and still maintain our values? Well, let's talk about bullying to start with. How do you feel about bullying? I hate it. My younger son was really badly bullied at school, and I hated the bullies. I just hated them. The thing to remember about it, and this is difficult to remember sometimes, is that all bullies have a backstory. There's a reason why they're bullies. Often they've been bullied themselves. They feel weak and they feel lacking in power and self-esteem. That's why they bully. There's no excuse for bullying behaviour, and it should never be tolerated. Never, ever tolerate it or make excuses for it. You can understand it sometimes because people have been bullied themselves. But remember that if you're bullied, it's the bully's weakness and lack of self-esteem that's causing it. It's got nothing to do with you. It's not actually even really personal. It's them punishing you for their feelings of their lack of self-worth. You must always seek help if you're bullied. And I'll tell you a story which is to do with business, but it's about a bully. We had a client who was a terrible bully, and I had to meet up with her. She was in London. I had to go down to London to meet her and tell her that her behaviour was completely unacceptable. She was bullying our colleagues in a really, really unpleasant way. This was scary for me. I'm not going to kid you that I found this easy. I didn't for all my many years. I found that quite a scary thing to do. Nobody likes to confront somebody who's angry and abusive, however much they may kid you that they don't mind doing it. Nobody likes it. So I took advice from my colleagues and we sat and discussed it. I took down to London with me a transcript of all the bullying emails that she had sent and the reports of bullying conversations that she'd made. There was over 200 pages of them. And when I sat with her and she argued with me, I tried to remain very calm. I was very, very calm and polite. And I just produced the documents. If there was any argument, I just said, well, shall we have a look at what happened? She didn't ever bully our colleagues again, but she did cry in that meeting. And I didn't even realise she was crying till her boss told me afterwards. And I felt a bit bad about that because I felt that I'd actually been quite obviously being meaner than I meant to be in that meeting. I also discovered that her former husband had abused her. She'd had domestic abuse. Now, I have to say, I do not regret what I did. I had to stop her bullying. But sometimes it helps to separate the behaviour from the person. Her behaviour was appalling. Don't get me wrong, it's among the worst I have ever seen in business. But she had a backstory. She was a damaged person. And when someone is horrible, it's their backstory that's talking. Nobody is born a bully. Well, no, they're not. Not the biggest bullies in the world. Nobody's born a bully. It's their problems which drive their behaviour, and not anything that we've done. If they're bullying us, it is not our fault. We should not feel diminished in any way. And that makes it easier to understand. We mustn't let it damage us. Damaged self-esteem is contagious and it spreads through bullying. If we don't get the vaccine of our own self-belief, if we can understand that we're not worth that bullying, we don't deserve that bullying, that gives us that vaccine, that makes us stronger. Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. Don't be dragged down to someone else's level. Just remember, you're better than that. You really are. So let's talk about arguments. Let me say something quite, I suppose, outrageous. You can never win an argument. This is something which takes a very long time to learn. When I was younger, I was full of angry, self-righteous indignation about everything. I wanted people to understand that I was right. I wanted to win arguments, and I wanted them to understand they were wrong. Absolutely pointless, completely pointless. Anger hooks anger. If you're angry, people will respond in the way you expect them to respond. You may change someone's mind about something to your point of view by being reasonable and rational and factual. If you understand, if you produce the facts, then people will listen to you if you do it with respect and calmly. I'll tell you a story about that as well. Many, many years ago, in the midst of time, when I was an operations manager, very long time ago, I was in a meeting in the company I worked for, and there was someone in the meeting who drove me bananas. she just drove me bananas. She didn't understand. And I became really frustrated. I wasn't rude, but I pointed out to her that she was completely wrong. After the meeting, my boss took me to one side and he said, "You completely ruined that meeting." That woman was beginning to understand. She needed to understand in her own way, not to be lectured by you. You ruined that meeting. And he was right. And I've never forgotten that. I can't say that I've never done it again because that would be totally untrue. I still occasionally will do that. But it was a really unhelpful way of behaving. So they're wise, if annoying, words. So people often respond in the way we expect them to respond. If you go into a meeting and you expect somebody to be angry, they will be angry. If you go into a meeting being reasonable and assuming that they will be reasonable, there's a much stronger chance they'll be reasonable. If you go into a meeting and say you're sorry about something, it's very rare for people to be unpleasant to you because it disarms them. People like people to admit their mistakes. So let me talk a little bit about empathy. Empathy is walking in someone else's shoes. This is what we try to do very much in the business. We always try and walk in the customer's shoes and know how they're feeling. Often with technology, people are frightened, they're angry, they're anxious about what's happening. We're often seeing people when things have gone wrong or their systems have died or they're going through a process of change, which everybody finds really difficult. We have to understand why it's difficult for them. Sometimes it's really hard to feel empathy. It's hard to look outside our own needs and our own feelings and our own emotions. We might be angry or frustrated with something. Perhaps we bought something that's broken, or our mobile phone's not working, or our broadband's gone up the Swanee. But I've learned over the years that if you're actually ringing someone or you're going in to complain about something, the worst thing you can do is to show no empathy for the person you're talking to. And there are 3 reasons for that. First of all, it's probably not their fault. So if you're ringing up about your broadband, the person you're speaking to on the end of the phone is not the person that put your broadband in. If your car is broken, it's not the person you're speaking to who's actually broken it. If you've bought a pair of shoes and the heels have dropped off, the woman in the shop did not make those shoes. So if you go in and shout at them, you're being really unfair. Interestingly, just yesterday, I heard on the radio a GP who was crying because some patients had shouted at her because she didn't have enough COVID vaccine. Now, we all know that's really unfair, but it doesn't stop us from shouting at people who can do nothing about it. So that's the first reason I'd ask you never to shout at somebody because you're unhappy about something. The second reason is, I think you're going to ruin their day. And if you ruin their day, you'll feel bad about it. Trust me, you really will. And the third reason is that, to be honest, if you want somebody to help you, you need that person to help you. And would you help somebody who's just ruined your day? So all of those things mean that it's really important to be kind, show respect to somebody. Just as you should show respect to all of your friends. So leading on from this, and my last point, because I don't have very much longer to talk to you, is I would ask you to remember that nobody is more important than anyone else. Never feel intimidated by somebody, whether they're rich or famous, or you think they're cleverer than you, or you think they're better at football, or you think that they're just in some way higher up the hierarchy than you. Never feel intimidated. And I would ask you also never to feel superior to anybody, whether it's the man in the sports shop where you've taken your trainers back, or whether it's the big issue seller. You are not better than them, and nobody is better than you. Everybody in the world deserves your politeness and respect. If someone's rude to you, remember, they go low, you go high. My last point is the most important person in the world to be kind to is yourself. You must show love and kindness to yourself. If you make mistakes, forgive yourself. Just remember that marmalade in the keyboard. I feel a bit bad about it, but hey, we'll survive. No one's going to die. Just let your mistakes go. If you have hurt somebody, apologize and then let it go. Okay? Never lose your self-worth. You are unique and amazing, and never forget that. And never forget, if they go low, you go high.